and then we'll get started. So if you can give us a 60 to 90-second breakdown, if you please.
Yes. Hi, this is Rocío Heres. I'm a Spanish citizen. I work at AltamarCam. I joined AltamarCam, that is an asset manager, in 2008. And since then, I've been part of the private equity investment team doing primaries, secondaries, and co-investments, basically in North America.
Perfect. Appreciate that. What one mistake do you see private equity firms or portfolio companies making, and what actions would you suggest to correct them?
One thing that I observe when diligence a lot of private equity firms globally is that a lot of private equity firms take people for granted, because obviously working in private equity is very, it's very compelling. You can make quite a bit of money, and it's a really interesting job. But I think private equity firms should not take people for granted, but try to, encourage them, and not only focusing on money, but also trying to make them feel part of a family, and focusing on how they are going to grow their careers and so on and so forth, because people that want to be part of a private equity firm usually are like really smart people that want to advance in their career. So that's something that that I think private equity firms should focus on.
Okay. And is that something you see, because obviously you'll review a lot of private equity firms, and is that something you see fairly consistent in, and just to put some context, majority of your business is in, if not all of it, is in the US as a focus. Is that something you see a lot of private equity firms falling down a bit? Not, we talk a little, I think it's a little bit around culture, a little bit about clarity and career progression and development and investment in its people. Is that something you look for when you're assessing businesses, and you see quite a lot of, maybe it's a bit of a downfall?
Of course, it's something that we focus on, because we want to make sure that that there is, private equity is a long-term business, and and you need to have a clear succession plan. You need to have a bench of good people that can achieve the same results that you have done in the past. So, and they have they have to learn from someone. And I think that's for me it's key when diligencing any investment opportunity, primary, secondary, so co-investments, because at the end you have to have the team. I wouldn't say it's a general thing that happens in the US, but what I've been observing over the more than 15 years that I've been doing private equity is that as the firms get bigger and bigger, obviously culture change a little bit, and that's good because it's improving and it's development. But at the end, you also have to take care of of the good people you have in the team and give them a real career path. So that's something that I've seen some firms lagging that. And that would be my advice to private equity firms that want to succeed in the future.
Of the firms that you've seen that have done that really well, which I'm sure there's plenty of, what have they done? Have they got documented career paths? Have they got really clear training program investment for their team? What have you seen? What does exceptional look like? What does really good look like in the firms you've reviewed?
Yeah, I would say it's a mix, a good mix of, having a good HR, team that helps to set up processes and, and help them to really develop career paths for, for the outperformers. I also have seen, people that are stuck in a role because, the old guard doesn't want to leave. And I think at some point, I'm not saying that everyone is ready at any point in time, but I think the old private equity has to help the younger generations to become more and more important within the firms. And, not only doing deals and good deals, but, managing firms, because, everyone wants to grow in their careers. Not everyone, but, almost everyone, at least what I've seen in the, in the private equity space. So I think that's something that you need to plan in advance, that, you have to have a view on how you will, how will you will do it over time, because that's not something that happens, overnight. That's something that you have to plan for years and years. So I think, succession plans and how you're gonna how you're going to help your younger generations evolve over time and become good leaders. It's really important, not only deal makers, but good leaders going forward.
Excellent. Appreciate that insight. Now, you have a what I would certainly regard as a unique insight into private equity. You're assessing different private equity firms, potentially allocating capital into those organizations, as well as co-investments and other strategies. What are you seeing the good firms, or what attracts you to private equity firms? What are they doing? What are they achieving? What do for others to think, okay, what could we be replicating? What could we be bringing into our private equity business?
I mean, I learned every single day, because you are right. I meet so many, GPs, private equity firms for, for primary investing, for secondaries, for co-investments. I'm focused in the North American region though, but I see so many that we learned a lot. I mean, again, everyone is smart, right? Within the industry. So that's really good. But, there are people that have been, setting up processes that are really smart and are really efficient. So that's something, that I always want to learn about, how they have been successful. One thing that I always focus on, obviously, is track record, team, and strategy, and so on and so forth. The ones that we like the most are the ones that are quite stable, right? That are evolving and developing over time and improving, but that are quite stable, and that have processes that you can follow, that you can understand, and those processes can be, sustainable over time. So I learned several things every day, and that's really, really good. Some of those things can be applied to our business. Some others can't, because obviously we don't have, so much direct exposure to companies. But what we have been, always learning about private equity firms is how they do invest and how they think about investing. That's key for us. But also, how they manage portfolio companies, their teams, and and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's good that I can learn a lot from all of them every single day.
So it sounds to me like a lot of it comes down to doing the basics well,
Yes.
having processes, having systems, you being able to see those, managing portfolio companies well, building good teams within the private equity firms, and no doubt the executive teams within the portfolio, creating stability and keeping those individuals in those positions in both parties, and just continuing on from that basis. So, it's not keys to Pandora's box. It's not, there's a firm doing something completely random with AI. It's doing the really simple things and doing them incredibly well. Is that right?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, and that's what, and that means that you will have, hopefully, repeatable good returns. When you are good at something and you apply it every time. So that's what we are looking for, and that's what we have learned over time that makes better returns.
So I'd be interested to get your perspective. There's a lot of private equity. Well, there's a lot of capital flowing into private equity, and it looks like there's going to be more. The US is looking at options of, not having all these stringent regulations around ultra high net worth and high net worth, and being able to, self-certificate yourself to invest in PE and 401ks and pension funds here in the US. Will explore that, and that will come up. There's a lot of money flowing in, and therefore it's highly competitive, and therefore more and more private equity firms are springing up. Are you seeing, is that difficult for you? Because there's a lot of firms, there's a lot of options you could deploy capital, there's lots of people screaming for it. How are you guys managing that And I'm sure you've got your existing ones that you're always looking at, but you're always looking at new ones, I'm sure, as well.
Yes. Yeah. I would say it's quite competitive out there. That's right. That people are fighting for capital more nowadays, right? Where fundraising have been lagging for a little bit of time. People are thinking when the best time to come back to market and so on and so forth. Doing a lot of secondaries out there and so on and so on. I would say we stick to our roots, right? I mean, we have a DNA that has been repeating itself since at least since I joined in 2008. And we always look again for the same things, right? People that are repeatable, that they know what they are doing, that it's a strategy that works, and they have proven that it works. And I think that over time, people that are really successful raising capital is because they have proven that the track record is repeatable in bad and good timings. So at the end, it's good that we're seeing more and more competition, in the sense that you can pick and choose whatever you want, both in primary, secondaries, and co-investments. We are seeing more GPs offering co-investments to attract capital. We are seeing more and more secondary. That's really good for our business, because our pipeline is getting bigger and bigger, and you can pick and choose whatever you like. I would say that's good. But at the same time, we need to be efficient and focus on, what our strategy or investment strategy is, right? But I think we are quite good on that, and being efficient and focused. The other good thing, though, is that I think, the private equity industry got a little bit LP unfriendly at some point, with fundraising processes being, one and only closing in a month. Others, or secondary transactions that were totally oversubscribed, and you didn't have time to do a proper diligence, and so on and so forth. And or at least what I'm seeing, is like that market rationalizing a little bit. That I think it's good, right? Because we never done anything that we were not comfortable with. But I think now, having more time, and GPs thinking about what LPs need, and so on and so forth, it's important, because at the end, you want to make sure that you are in the right spot and picking the right investment opportunities. So I'm seeing a lot of competition. That's good. But I'm also seeing, how people are not struggling. I wouldn't say struggling, but how people are, making a good effort to understand what LPs need, and that's important to rationalize the market.
Yeah, it's definitely an elongated timeline of raising capital, and we definitely seen changes that with a lot of the clients that we work with and speak with on a regular basis. With just last question with regards to the process of obviously your expertise on fundraising, on fund work. One of the trends that we're seeing is more and more firms becoming more and more specialist.
Yep.
And rather than we invest in every industry, in every market, not real estate, not infrastructure, it's now being we invest in services companies, or we invest in this. Are you seeing that trend, or are you seeing any other trends of the firms that you're reviewing?
Yeah, I would say it's true that there is more specialization, but not only the sector focused funds. That's how I call them, right? The ones that just do business services, or just do technology. That's true, and they are truly experts on their area of expertise. I would say there is more and more focus or a specialization also within generalistic managers, right? That was what you were describing. People that invest in different sectors, that per se shouldn't be bad, right? Because when things get really really hot in any given sector, they can't move to another sector that is not really hot, or is not that expensive, or they see more opportunities. So being a generalistic is not bad per se. But what I'm seeing more and more, and that's what private equity firms always tells me, is that at the end they need to have an expertise, because they will have to compete against those that are like really experts in there. So everyone is becoming or trying to become an expert in their area of focus. So I think that's a trend that we're seeing more and more, not only with the investment teams, but also, with the operating partners and so on and so forth. Because then, all the mistakes that you have made in the past, I'm sure you will be able to see them, better in the same area of investment. So we're seeing that trend. And, again, I don't think being a generalistic is a bad thing, because you can pick and choose once again. But we are seeing also specialization within generalistics.
Perfect. Well, appreciate that insight. So from reviewing your career, I've noticed obviously you've worked in Spain, which is where you're originally from, as you mentioned. You've also worked in Chile, and you've obviously based in New York, which I think from our pre-discussion, you spend a bit of time in Spain, 6 months, and then 6 months in New York. So what's it been like having a career abroad and spending a lot of your time, obviously, abroad on that basis?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. So I'm originally from a small town in the north of Spain, and I always wanted to have like an international career. So I studied abroad. I obviously learned English over time and so on and so forth. I moved to Madrid at some point, but I always wanted, as I went to university abroad, I always wanted to have like an international experience. At that time, the first opportunity that came up was, move to Chile, help AltamarCam to set up the office there, and try to build a business there, and it was great. Obviously, Chile is a Spanish-speaking country, so it was easy for me to move there. The culture is really similar. It's a great country, so I love it there. But then the New York opportunity came up. I was already covering the U.S. because I was traveling from Latin America, from Chile in particular, to to the U.S. Once a month, or even more often than that. So I saw it as a great opportunity as a European, working in finance, that I love what I do, and I think it's obvious. Working in New York was like a great experience, so I didn't doubt it and moved to New York, and it has been a pleasure working in New York since then. It's really dynamic. There's a lot of networking. You can do whatever you want, and you can go to several networking events. I met a lot of like really smart and interesting people that have helped me over time in my career. So I think has been a really good experience. Nowadays I'm spending more time in Madrid, because I like the European culture, but having my work sit in New York is just super interesting. I love it. I love the North American market. It's really deep, and it has been a great experience, and obviously helped me to improve my English.
Absolutely, which is incredibly good. So if we think about kind of cultural aspects of that kind of Spain, and your exposure to Europe from that perspective, but also comparison with North America, how have you found the differences? I know you've not dealt too much in with different private equity firms in Europe, but how have you found the differences between the kind of cultures of the pace, of the environment, of the communication, in difference between Europe and North America?
I would say for me, that was one of the main concerns that I had when, deciding to move to New York, because I was like, most of my colleagues are North American. I had to deal with a lot of, American GPs and so on and so forth. So that was one of my main concerns. I would say, it has been incredible. So it everyone in North America is so welcoming. They I mean, they try to pronounce my name correctly. That is not something easy for them, and they are curious about where in Spain I'm from, and so on and so forth. So they truly read, and I have really good friends there. So I would say, what's the main difference? I wouldn't. I mean, there are cultural differences. That's for sure. But I wouldn't say they are so important that makes my life, miserable or anything like that. I mean, totally on. I mean, totally on the contrary, right? I mean, I love it there, and everyone is so welcoming, and everyone is, willing to help you, and I think I made it, and I'm super happy. And yeah, everyone. I mean, they don't care. They don't care if I'm European and American. So that's they help me with my accent, and that's it.
Sounds like you've had a good experience. What are your influences? What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to that you recommend that others check out?
Well, I would say generally speaking, I try. I mean, my influence to get to private equity was a relative that he got me into business. So that's great because he introduced me to private equity when I finished university. I didn't know much about private equity, and he was the one getting me into the business, and that I'm really thankful for. And since that, I I've tried to be, always on top of all the research, all the materials that I get. I mean, the secondaries market is booming, right? So I'm always trying to learn. I'm trying to learn about that market and how it's growing, prices, and so on and so forth. Because for me, that's fascinating. How it evolves over time. So that's something that I try to keep on, reading and so on and so forth. I try to read as much as possible on finance, generally speaking. But I would say watch. I don't watch a lot of finance related shows. When I'm done, I try to watch something that it's easy at home more than finance related. But what I try to do is to read a lot. On all the researchers that you get access to through your network, because that's really important, and that helps you to understand how the market is evolving over time and keep you up to date on everything. That's super important. I try to spend 2-3 hours per week to do that. That's yeah.
You mentioned a relative got you interested and intrigued about private equity. So there's no there's no obvious thing that, oh yeah, women aren't coming into private equity as much as men are, and there's tons of
Yeah.
arguments about why. But one of the facts has to be that not enough women are choosing financial services with a linear space on private equity. What's your take on why you were interested in private equity and how the private equity industry could attract more women to it from the grassroots level, and rather than obviously other industries?
Yeah, I would say in my case, I was always really hungry in evolving and having a good professional career, and possibly international. So I thought that getting into private equity will be super interesting, and I think I'm really proud of getting into it, because I think it's really interesting and you can learn a lot of things. Um, it's true that we are a little bit behind in terms of getting a pure balance between men and women within the industry. It's getting much better though.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing, I mean, I've met so many women over time that have done really well. They do have a family. They have done super good in both aspects of their life, that it's really compelling, and it's a compelling story, right? So I would say, and I have obviously a lot of chats and discussions around women in private equity. I try to help as much as I can to my colleagues and so on and so forth. But I would say, generally speaking, there is mindset that when you get into private equity, you want to be able to have a family, and I don't think that's the case. Yes, you will have to travel a lot. You will have to do a lot of effort in in trying to advance in your career. But if you like it, and you find the right balance, you will be able to achieve what you want. So I would say, that's something I would love to change, that mindset on, one or the other, but not the two of them, because I truly believe you can have a family and have a really, good career within private equity.
Thank you very
Direct private equity and, asset managers doing primary, secondaries, and co-investments as I do. So, that's something that we need to encourage, we need to explain, and we need to make sure that everyone understands. I mean, being the only woman in the room, it's something that, I'm used to, and that's fine. That's fine. But I think we'll see less and less of that going forward.
Well, hopefully that message and that mantra encourages more women into private equity, and anything of any diversity, and anybody to be attracted and come into what is an absolutely phenomenal industry in private equity. So if anybody wishes to reach out to you, how best do they get in touch, please?
They can find me in my LinkedIn page, Rocío Heres Fernandez Ladreda, and happy to talk to whoever needs any advice, wants to chat, and whatever.
Rocio is a hell of a name, so we will put that in the show notes for anybody that does want to reach out, and you'll be able to find her. We'll put a link to her LinkedIn to find there. So, well, Rocio, thank you very much for coming on. You've given us insight into working abroad. You've given insight into how private equity firms can improve, can develop, and can make changes for the better. So, thank you very much for joining us and coming onto the podcast.
Thank you so much for your time.
And as always, thank you very much for everybody who's listened and tuned in today to listen to the Private Equity Podcast. Should you ever need support with private equity professionals or portfolio executive hiring across Europe or North America, please do reach out to us at Raw Selection. And if you haven't done already, please do subscribe, as our podcast comes out now every single week. But till the next time, keep smashing it, and thank you very much for listening. That's excellent. Thank you very much.